I find the legacy of the United States to be a very fascinating topic to really dive in on, especially when we're talking about how it exists diplomatically within the global stage. But as all things, America has changed over the generations, and I think the values that we once held incredibly high have turned into a kind of rage, and it's in that rage that America's legacy currently is defined. And of course, there's no question that America is indeed a mighty country. It is whether it is good, and if not good, why should the world keep following it? I think once there was a perception that America was this beacon on the hill, a land of freedom, a champion of rights, and a defender of the weak. Whether true or false, this was a very common sentiment held around the world. And if not a sentiment, then a myth. But that myth has spoiled in the mouths of many who've kind of tasted that bitter fruit. Throughout my generation, what was offered as liberty was often packaged with bombs, loans, or even fast food. What was promised as democracy has become the blueprint for surveillance, division, and unchecked greed. And still, it demands that the world bends the knee to its values, to its money, to its might. But values are only valued if they are actually lived. And in our culture, these values of old really carry no value to them anymore. I think to know why the rest of the world must turn away from America, we really have to look within. It is a citizenry that is more armed than anywhere else on the planet, but at the same time, no one feels safe. It is a place where children fear going to school. It is a place where the ill fear going to hospitals. It is a place where we vote, but nothing ever changes. It's a place where those who serve the rich speak loudly, while at the same time those who suffer in silence. Because how can a country actually speak of peace when the country itself can't speak without using its rage? How can it offer truth when it doesn't even believe in the very concept of truth? The fact of the matter is, America is an empire that's in collapse, and it's unraveling, thread by thread. But the real danger isn't just what happens within the borders, it's what it asks the rest of the world to become. Because America itself doesn't conquer simply with tanks, or if not with tanks alone, it's with its movies, with its advertising, with its money. It teaches other nations to want what it wants, regardless of the cost. It teaches to value production over peace, consumption over connection, and ego over community. And so the world remakes itself in its image. City by city, gray towers rise, and on every street we see the same exact logos. There is no uniqueness to the world anymore, and this is because it has followed the American design of corporatism. And in the mind of every person around the planet, the same desires are implanted, meaning that people are even losing their very humanity and individuality. Because the fact is, in chasing the American model, the world is in danger of losing its own soul. And that's not because America is evil, it's because America is a very empty place. And what is empty is never satisfied, it simply eats until there's nothing left. True poverty in America isn't material, true poverty in America is spiritual. In America now, freedom is defined by disconnection. Disconnection from one another, disconnection from ownership, disconnection from society or community. This is a land where wealth is admired and celebrated, but at the same time, the meaning itself is forgotten. And in the rise of social media, we've lost even more of our humanity, as we can just walk down the street at night and see faces illuminated by the screens on their phones. America has become an empire built on an algorithm, but has lost any moral high ground in its spiritual hollowness. So we have to ask ourselves and the rest of the world, is this the model that they should follow? I do believe that the world should turn its back on America, but I don't think that it's out of hatred. I simply think that it's out of one's self-respect. The idea of identity when it comes to individual sovereign nations and individual cultures is one that needs to be kept. It's one that needs to be cared for, because it's in that separation of cultures that we really see what highlights mankind, in the contrast between one and another. But for the rest of the world, it simply takes the courage to say that we will not become a spectacle. We will not trade wisdom for efficiency. We will not raise our children in the shadow of drone wings and shopping malls. We want to be ourselves. The fact is, the world must look inward and understand what each country is and what's special to them. It has to remember their own stories, their own rhymes, their own histories, the wars that they've been in and the conflicts that they've survived to build them to what they are. It doesn't matter what country it is, it doesn't matter what continent it is. Any culture or country that's been touched and affected by the cultural diaspora of America needs to break away and look inward and find an appreciation for the core tenets that define what each of those cultures are. It's time to back away and let America be what it's going to be and let the world be something else. As I said, this isn't something out of hatred, because we have to understand the position that America's in right now. America has a deep cultural sickness that it's going through. We are, in effect, in the middle of a civil war, or just one that seems to be bloodless at the moment. But America doesn't actually know itself anymore. America has completely lost identity with what it used to be and what it's supposed to be. What we've become is just a hollow specter of ourselves that haunts the rest of the world and pushes military adventurism only for the benefits of a few and the military-industrial complex. America isn't a nation that serves its own nation because it's a nation that has forgotten its people. But America is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, the massive bureaucratic structure that reigns supreme and disguises its intentions while pantomiming a sacred cloth that is our national colors. It is one that is slowly, over generations now, has been degrading, decaying, and breaking our system so that the citizens in just a generation or two will have nothing left. It is a sickness, and America hasn't learned if it's going to survive or not. The rest of the world has to look on and understand that what happens when sickness takes hold of someone in the group. You have to quarantine them. And at this time right now, the world needs a cultural quarantine of America, because America needs to figure itself out and figure out what it wants to be, what nation it wants to be known as in the future, what its legacy is truly about. If it's one just of military adventurism, or if it's one of human rights and advancing a collective global peace that has been sought after throughout human history, that it as a nation is now has the ability to push the world towards, but at the same time chooses to use its military might to make people bend the knee instead, and not push for equity between countries and peoples, but instead would have them act in submission to a foreign authority, which goes against the very principles of the founding of America itself. If you are outside of the States, or you've lived outside the States long enough, you know that looking at America from the outside, it is a terrifying thing to behold that such a superpower, such a powerful nation has no sense of itself and seems to have no control. It is a country that exists in the maelstrom of the chaos that its culture has manifested. And somehow it staggers on in survival, while at the same time doing untold damage to countries and nations and people all over the world. It's time to step back. It's time for the world, for the moment, to turn its back on the United States of America. For their very own survival, it has become a necessity. We as Americans need to figure out what our country is going to be. As individuals, we may feel like we don't actually have power in the decision, but at the same time, we need to not become black-pilled, not become disenchanted and despondent to the changes that are happening around us. We need to actually commit ourselves to enacting the change that we need. But until next time, have a good one.